Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's talk on the anthology Beirute Noir, edited by Iman Humaydan. This is an initiative of Tabla Publishing House, the first Brazilian publisher specializing in Arabic literature translated into Portuguese. Beirute Noir is one of the volumes of the Akashic Books Noir series, which consists of short story anthologies backgrounded by neighborhoods of urban centers all around the world. Here in Brazil, besides Beirute Noir, Tabla is also publishing Marrakech Noir, edited by Yassin Adnan, and Baghdad Noir by Samuel Shim'oun. Defining the noir genre within Arabic fiction is not an easy task. Arabic readers have been acquainted with crime fiction, murder mysteries, and detective novels for a long time across the last century, either by translation of French, British, and American novels and thrillers, such as Agatha Christie, or by the works of well-known local authors, such as Naguib Mahfouz and Ghassan Kanafani. However, it seems that the noir genre has gone beyond mystery and detective stories. The political instability of the region, as well as the oppression and misery, especially after the 2011 uprisings, made noir take another direction and not be restricted to crime-solving stories exclusively, but also revealing the darker sides of societies in contemporary Arabic writing. What is the noir genre? How does it occur in Arabic literature nowadays? And what about the reception of these stories and the topics addressed by them? Well, to help us answer some of these and other questions, please welcome our guests. Johnny Temple, publisher and editor-in-chief of Akashic Books, Iman Humaydan, editor of the Beirute Noir anthology, and Pedro Criado, translator of Beirute Noir into Portuguese. Welcome, everybody, and thank you again for accepting this invitation. So let's begin with Johnny. Johnny, could you talk about the project of the Noir series by Akashic and how was that conceived? How did you go about contacting authors and selecting cities in the Middle East and North Africa to take part in the project, such as Marrakech, Baghdad, and Jerusalem, and specifically Beirut?
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And so we started this Noir series in 2005, I think it was, with Brooklyn Noir. That was the first book in the series. And the idea was to have a bunch of noir short stories, each one set in a different neighborhood of Brooklyn. And the book was a big success. And the reason of having the stories set in different neighborhoods is so that the stories don't all take place in 3 or 4 popular neighborhoods, but that really explore a full city. And we published that book, Brooklyn Noir, a long time ago, and it was very successful. And so then we started doing other cities as well, other American cities. And then we added London and Dublin, and we started adding more international cities. And then at a certain point, we realized that we wanted to add, we wanted to expand the series further, not just America and Europe, but into Africa, into the Middle East and South America and other regions. And at the time, one of my colleagues, Ibrahim Ahmad, who now works at Viking, but he was an editor at Akashic. So he and I, through our discussions, thought that we wanted to add more, start to build out some of the Arabic cities. And Beirut was, of course, important to us to do because it's an important city, an important international city, and we were certain that there was a lot of noir stories to tell. And Ibrahim had struck up a relationship with an editor named Samuel Shim'oun, who ended up editing Baghdad Noir for us. And he suggested that Iman would be a perfect person to edit Beirute Noir. So Ibrahim reached out to Iman with this idea, and Iman was enthusiastic. And then we were up and running. And the book speaks for itself, but that doesn't mean we can't speak about it too. But it's it's a brilliant book. This is the what the American edition looks like. The stories are phenomenal, and the English translation was done by a woman named Michelle Hartman, who did a fantastic translation, and so it was an important and just an important contribution to the series, and we're very pleased, and we found a very good audience for it in the English-speaking world. And we're thrilled that it's also being translated into other languages as well.
And Johnny, did you have to present and define the noir genre for the editors of the anthologies in the Arab world?
I think that see for us, we don't at Akashic, we don't reach out to the individual writers. Our main contact is with the editor. So what's most important is not that we know a bunch of Lebanese writers, but that we make a good relationship with Iman, because, through our own research and appreciating her writing and her work, and then in discussions with her, it seemed like she was a great choice and knew all the people. And Iman, you might be able to reflect better on what your understanding of noir was when Ibrahim first reached out to you. But yes, sometimes when we reach out to editors, we do have to explain what we mean by noir, because the word can mean so many different things. I will say that we define noir very broadly. We have over 100 books in this noir series. So if we had a really narrow definition of noir, I think the books would be a lot less interesting, because there would be a lot of, men wearing fedora hats and femme fatales and cigarettes. And while that stuff can be fun and sexy, I wouldn't be interested in doing 100 books around those noir tropes. So when we're talking to editors, we say we're looking for short fiction that explores dark themes. Maybe there's crime involved, but not necessarily. And probably, and most importantly, the stories probably don't have happy endings. Mm-hmm. But other than that, we sort of leave it up to the editors to sculpt their own vision of what their noir anthology is going to look like.
Amazing. And Iman, you as the editor of the Beirute Noir anthology, could you talk to us about your process of organizing the book? For example, how did the contributors you talked with perceive the idea of writing these stories, especially when the topics dealt with in the noir genre, such as sex, violence, and other issues, are considered taboos in Lebanese society?
Mm-hmm. Well, hello, Philip, and thank you for having me also here. I'm so happy to be with you. Actually, I was very excited when Ibrahim Ahmad contacted me. It was maybe 2011. Correct me, Johnny, if I'm wrong.
That sounds all right.
It took a long time to come out with the book, because first of all, it's new for the Lebanese writers, this genre of writing. But at the same time, it is very natural to write noir short stories coming from Beirut. I had to write down several conditions or several aspects in order to choose writers, first of all, and to choose the good stories for this collection. The first condition was to receive good stories, in the sense that they have good style, they have the creativity is strong in it. And it was important also for me, as a second condition, to cover all the kinds of the memories that young writers experienced in Lebanon, especially during the war. I remember we had a long talk with Ibrahim and also with Johnny, mainly with Ibrahim. First of all, I wanted only to choose very young writers. I have weakness towards non-established writers, the writers who have difficulties to be visible, who have difficulties that their voices to be heard. And then we decided to choose the majority of young writers and to include 3 or 4 well-established writers in the collection. And that's what we did. We came out with Rawi Haj was included, Abbas Baidoun was included. These are the well-established writers. Najwa Barakat, Alawiya Subh. And the others are very young, and I think it was the first time that their story was translated into another language. They never have been translated before. And there is there was a very important condition that I wanted to show it in this book, that women writers are so many and they are so talented in Lebanon. And especially after the Civil War, we had a big number of women who want to express themselves and who want to write. Even not only this, many women went back to universities, went back to college to continue their studies and to build a profession after 15 years of civil war. And this, I don't know if you paid attention that in Beirute Noir, we have more than 50% of the writers are women, which is not, I didn't find it neither in Baghdad Noir, nor in Marrakesh Noir, nor in Tehran Noir. This is a part of the positive specification of this city that's full of contradictions, has a lot of civil wars, but at the same time, the woman there is has something to say, and she wants to express herself always. And I was so glad to read women writers that I never read before, like Bana Baidoun, that she wrote a very sad, a very black story, but a very funny story at the same time, the pizza delivery story. The same as for Rawi Haj, well established. Also, his story is it's full of black humor. Other stories, you can feel the wounds of the memory that haven't been healed up till now. And Beirute, I can say, when we say Beirute Noir, as if I'm adding an adjective to the name of my city, because really it's Beirute Noir, especially now.
And Iman, when I read the introduction for Marrakesh Noir, Yassin Adnan said that it was difficult to contact people and to convince them to write noir stories in Morocco. What about Lebanon, for example?
Well, it wasn't difficult at all, because as Tony said, noir is a broad definition. It's not necessarily meaning crime or police or thrill or stories. So the life that we were living in, I mean, when I asked Bana, when I asked Abbas Baidoun, for them, their experience is a part of this broad noir. Their life experience in war, experience in militantism, in politics, in their college life. It was noir because since the since the independence of Lebanon in 1943, actually every 10 years we had either a very small civil war or a very long one. So our memory is so absorbed with the noir things. I mean, even when we talk about when someone was born, we say he was born 1 year after the Civil War, or he was born the same month of the Israeli invasion to the south, or it's like that. So they didn't find any difficulty, and I didn't find any difficulty in finding writers to write noir stories. And I can say that if Johnny asks again to write another collection, Beirute Noir, I will find more than 15. Mm.
And what about, before we go to Pedro, I just want to ask you one more question. And what about the issue of the translation? Because we have the Beirute Noir first in translation, then in Arabic. What's your opinion about that?
Well, you know, this is there is not a secret in this. I have been contacted by an American publishing house, not an Arabic publishing house. And actually, you said something about the noir in Arab word. We don't have a tradition of writing noir stories. As you said, we have a tradition of translating noir stories. Mm. The first conference that took place here in Paris 2 years ago in the University of Paris about crime novels was very recent, and the issue is recent, the topic is recent. So if you look at the production of books, the collection of short stories of different writers that came out after the civil war in Lebanon, you can tell that there was a tendency to forget all the atrocities of the war. Like there is a book in front of me right now. The title is so strange. I am a positive Lebanese. We want to be positive, not me. I mean the trend, the tendency. We want to be positive. We want to forget what happened, and we want to continue. Some people can continue through remembering, and some people want to forget. So nobody thought of coming out with a noir collection in Arabic. But I think Beirute Noir has been, I think we should ask Johnny about it, because I think it will come out in Arabic.
Yeah, I think there's a very good chance of that. The series has continued to be, different books in this series have been translated into over 20 different languages, and we're starting to build more relationships with Arabic publishers. Mm-hmm. So I'm optimistic.
Sorry, Johnny, I thought already there is someone who wants to publish it.
Yeah, I can. Let me see if I can. Sorry. Yeah, Alka is the name of the publishing company, the Arabic publishing company. And so hopefully that's something that we will be able to see soon.
Yeah.
Alka is a Marseille-based publishing house, no? Isn't it?
I think so. That's right. Yeah.
Like Arabic publisher, but they are based in France, in Marseille. Great. And now I go to Pedro. Pedro, you translated the book into Portuguese, and I would like to ask you about the reception of the book here in Brazil. Well, what would you say about the reception of this kind of literature, talking about Lebanon in Brazil, since we have here like one of the hugest Lebanese communities in the world. No?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. Thank you to my colleagues, and thank you to Felipe, to Tabla for promoting this idea and bringing more Arabic literature to us. To me, it was kind of a surprise, a positive surprise, because I'm also used to more classical Arabic literature, and I know some of the big names in Arabic modern literature, like Naguib Mahfouz or Mahmoud Darwish or Yusuf Idris, or some more, I don't know, more maybe international names. And it's very nice to hear Iman say that one of the criteria of her was to select less known writers, so then we can get to know them and get to know more like actual literary production in Lebanon now, happening right now. So to me, as a Brazilian, it was kind of a familiar place, not because I have any history or family from Lebanese origins, but because I got used to the themes of the noir genre, not especially from crime stories, but more from suspense and horror stories, and more like a dark tone. So from the point of view of Lebanese speaking or Lebanese original short stories, I think it's very suiting, because it's very familiar, mainly here in Southeast Brazil, where we have large Lebanese and Syrian communities, and recent Palestinian and Iraqi and Egyptian communities, and so on. And so I think it's very nice to get to know this kind of literature coming to Brazil and having the chance to translate it. Because in Brazil, we have a very specific notion about the Middle East and about the East in general, and about the literary traditions, and about what kind of themes they are used to speaking of. And it's nice to have a kind of a combination of the noir genre, which I mostly associate with maybe Western tradition more than Eastern tradition, and to see that there is writers willing to write about it and write their own perspectives, like their own view on what this do for their city and their culture. And I think it's very nice to have this perspective, to have this experience. So to me, it was a very wonderful experience, because it was mixing very different things that I haven't seen a lot. So I was thrilled. Actually, I found that to be, in a positive way, kind of good introduction to modern Arabic literature, especially from a place like Lebanon, which lots of people here in Brazil know about or know something about because of their family roots and some history, maybe albeit history of conflict and something they see in the news. But it's very good to be presented to this kind of production, to this kind of writing. And I heard good reviews, I heard good opinions, good impressions from different people talking about this kind of shocking themes coming from such a different place from the world, such a place that is not actually so well known as maybe Western literature here in Brazil or Western cultural production in general. So it was a good way, I think, to get to know this kind of reality, this kind of possibility.
Do you think, Pedro, that that this book can shape another image of Lebanon in Brazil? Because I see that many times people have an idealized image of Lebanon here. I mean, when we talk to people of Lebanese descent, could you talk a little about this?
Yeah, sure. I think that in this sense that you just spoke about, we can actually know that we have lots of stereotypes, mainly concerning the Eastern traditions or Middle Eastern or Far Eastern, all of this. So it's a good way to see that it also have this kind of modern production that is not just stereotypical, because being from abroad, we actually get to know first the stereotypical stuff, and after, if we get to go deeper, we get to know something different, something more relatable. So I think that the first thing that comes to evidence, that it shows itself really well with Beirute Noir, is this kind of reality, this sense of reality, of something really actual, really happening right now, from people experiencing day-to-day life, and from experience modern feelings and modern experience, and some kind of reality that we all can share, we all can identify in some way. Here in Brazil, we can identify lots of themes coming from Beirute Noir, and not because they are based in Beirut, but because they are written from a certain point of view, a certain experience of living in an atmosphere of violence or danger or a certain fear, or trying to put this together in our hearts with hope and joy and some kind of relief. So I think this is the most easy way to identify with. So for Brazilian readers, I think this is the main path, is the main road to get to know what kind of feeling and what kind of life people are living in these parts of the world. And that seems so distant and so different from everything we get to experience here. Not that we live in a wonderful and mostly different society and free from troubles and nothing like that, but mainly because we get to identify a certain proximity, a certain identification with this kind of experience from day-to-day life, and from experiencing some kind of instability. At the same time, we experience a kind of hope, or try to experience a kind of hope and a kind of relief. And I think it's what struck me the most was to see this happening in a place like Beirut, which I've never been to, but I got to understand a bit. I got to see myself there. I got to see myself as a member of that community by identifying not necessarily with the region or the geographical place, but with the people living there, with the kind of feelings that they were trying to express.
Amazing. Johnny, so going back to the noir genre, you edited the USA Noir collection. Could you tell us which are the features of the traditional, in your opinion, noir genre in English, and the differences and similarities between the short stories in the Akashic Noir series, which came out in the English language countries, and in the Arabic ones? Do you feel that the authors of Beirute Noir, for example, try to emulate the English-speaking writers of the noir genre?
Maybe answering the second part of your question, I didn't have the sense that the writers were trying to emulate the English-speaking writers. Iman might have a more informed perspective, and we certainly are not trying to create that dynamic. What these books are meant to do is to really, really look at a city. And my feeling is that if one of these books speaks to the people in that city authentically, then it's going to have a better audience outside of the city. So we're not, as I said, we're not trying to have a strict notion of what noir means. Really, what we want to do is explore the dark side of cities and also the dark side of the human psyche. And I think that Beirute Noir, when you read it, I've never been to Beirut. We published 100 books in the city and in the series, and I've probably been to, 90 of those 100 cities. I've been to many cities around the world because I've traveled a lot. But when the books are successful, they really capture, a little bit like what Pedro was saying. They really capture, what it's like, or what the preoccupations are of the people in the city, in that particular city. And I think that one of the things that I notice most about Beirut noir, and also like Baghdad noir, is that the issues in the stories, a lot of the noir stories in American cities, you have writers imagining life or death scenarios. But I think it's maybe a little bit different for people who have lived in Beirut to imagine life or death scenarios when, as Iman is talking about, so much of life is defined by when the war happened, or when the Israelis, attacked the country. And, a lot of Americans, when seen through that lens, or looking, similarly Baghdad noir, we lead a very, not all Americans, lots of Americans lead a very dangerous existence. But a lot of the writers in America lead a more privileged lifestyle. And when I say privilege, I don't mean that they're rich. I just mean that we don't have people attacking our borders very often. It happened on September 11th, 2001. It happened in Pearl Harbor at the beginning of World War II. But we're very fortunate there's obviously a lot of dynamics that go into it. We also have a huge military. And that's not a matter of being fortunate. It's a matter of having a huge military. And oftentimes American presidents and politicians are bullies, as we know, Donald Trump being a good example of that. But also most American presidents are sort of bullies. And so sometimes with some of the American volumes, you have writers that are just imagining what it's like to be in a life and death scenario. But it's very different, I think, for writers that have lived through a war. And I think the word noir carries very different connotations if you've lived through a war. And that's why the flexibility of the series and the flexibility of our definition of noir is very important, so that it allows these books to be very different from each other, not just because people speak a different language or have a different culture, but the world around them can be very, very different. And, in the book Miami Noir, there's wind and hurricanes in almost every story in the book. And that's kind of interesting. But the stakes, I think, are a lot higher in Beirut than they are in Miami. And so, and I'm not saying that the Beirut book is, well, I'm just saying that the stories are supposed to really reflect life on the ground in that particular city.
Okay. And concerning we are talking about the specificities of the noir genre in the Beirut noir. One noticed that the Lebanese Civil War comes out as a background for the stories, as you mentioned, and some of the authors they wrote about areas in Beirut that since last August were completely or partially destroyed once more by a devastating explosion in the harbor of the city. How does destruction relate to the noir genre in that case?
Yeah, it was a devastating, if I can say, issue that happened on the 4th of August 2020. And when you wrote to me, inviting me to this encounter, I thought that Lebanon, that Beirut, when we wrote the book, when the book came out, we were able to talk about Beirut Noir of the war and Beirut that's trying to stand on its feet, Beirut that's trying to get out of this tunnel. But after August, all Beirut is becoming a noir. Imagine around 27% of a city will be partially or totally destroyed, not because the enemies came into it or bombed it. It's because the political class, the leaders, they don't give a shit to what's going to happen to the Lebanese citizens. They don't care for their life. They don't care for their dreams. They don't care for the future. They don't care for their houses. And up till now, imagine, up till now, they didn't even try to investigate who's responsible of this humanity crime. And I'm sure now that a lot of stories will come out. Actually, I have been asked recently to write a story about what happened to a family in the area. There is a book that will come out that will also, it's like Beirut Noir, it will collect stories of people who are living in the area, the destroyed area, but the spirit of the book, the philosophy of the book, it has a mission to show the solidarity among people, how people helped each other in a time that the state is not there. I mean, the state is absent. People are left to their own destiny, to their own will to live, to their own survival, and to the solidarity among them. So I'm expecting a lot of work will come out, I mean, on the artistic level, on the literary level, but it's still early to talk about it.
Sorry, I had a problem with connection. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Iman, I have another question for you from the chat. A person asked if we have to what extent do the stories or the tales of Beirut Noir reflect the literary experience of each of the respective authors?
I think it reflects very well their itinerary. And it also reflects more or less their personal experience, though the stories, they are not biography at all, but they reflect their personal experience either in the political field or in their social experience. Like, for example, the death of Adel Alian written by Abbas Baidoun. Abbas Baidoun was a gauchiste, a leftist, and he was imprisoned twice. And he is telling the story of a man who was once upon a time his comrade, and then he has changed. So the same as the story that was written by Bashir Hilal, who left us only a few weeks before the English edition came out, and that's why we dedicated the book to him. Thanks for Johnny to do this. Also, Bashir wrote a short story about his experience when he was in the Communist Party in Lebanon. and he was kicked out from the party. And one of his leaving to France was because of that. He left the early years of war because he criticized the leader in the party. So it is so the stories are so related to the lives and the experiences of the writers, though they didn't write about themselves directly. The same as Bana Baidoun. Bana Baidoun is she's very well known to walk in the night. She loves to walk in the night on the Corniche or near the sea. And all her stories that she imagines them happening in the night.
You see that the is volume.
Well, I cannot hear you very well, Philip. I think now I have a problem of connection.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. You're saying, man, we see that each of the authors who contributed to the book, they are of very different backgrounds. Some of them live outside of Lebanon, and we see that it's reflected on this reflects in language. I would like to ask Pedro, what's your opinion about this issue, the language of the book, the language of each author, and how did you tackle this problem or this challenge in your translation into Portuguese?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to listen to Iman about this after I say something, because as a Lebanese, I think she can express this very much in a better way than I can. But translation-wise, I think I can say that it was a good challenge to work with such an elegant Arabic and with English written by non-native English speakers. So that's, I don't know if everyone who's listening and watching us right now, but Beirute is very well known in the Arabic studies community as a trilingual speaking place, as a city with lots of English speakers and French speakers and mostly Arabic speakers. And we have this kind of mixture in the book. There is originally written in English, and there is short stories originally written in French, and most of the short stories are originally written in Arabic. So my first concern was obviously dialectical Arabic, because I'm not very familiar with the Lebanese dialect, but I'm familiar with Fusha. We call it the classical or standard Arabic. So that was kind of a relief, because the stories are mainly written in Fusha, in formal Arabic. And funnily enough, one of the stories which implies some kind of dialect is originally written in English. It's Dirty Teeth by the incredible Sardine. So I felt from the beginning a very Clockwork Orange-ish kind of feel in that story. So that was very well put in, because we could relate to this kind of double speak, as we talk about in the Clockwork Orange. So we could maintain some kind of Arabic and dialectical Arabic in the translation to Portuguese as well, because of the usage of this kind of resource in the English written story. But in the Arabic written stories, it was more of a challenge of getting to know some kind of expressions and some difference in tone and some difference in what usage are these words getting. And it was kind of a very nice and multiple experience, because I got to listen and read some very well written Arabic and standard Arabic stories, and also with a Lebanese touch. So this was mainly the feel that I got, that the tone was the difficult part to translate, mainly because of the genre, the noir genre, and this kind of brooding atmosphere, this kind of reflexive and I don't know if atmospheric tone. And the dialect wasn't really an issue, but the Fusha was lending itself to a very expressive and very, I don't know, very noirish writing. So that was the main challenge, I think, besides finding some other word in the dictionary and getting to know some idiomatic expressions, and mainly things that we just deal with on a daily basis as translators. But I really like to listen, Iman, about this perspective, because as a Lebanese writer, she can maybe express this in the best way we can find right here.
Mm-hmm. It was important actually for me to make sure that the three languages are in that book, because we are talking about Beirut, and Beirut is a cosmopolitan city, and its schools teach three languages. You have schools where the first language is English, Arabic, other schools French, Arabic, and English as a third language. And the book came, I was asked to edit this book. It came at a time when we were discussing to found a PEN center in Lebanon that is affiliated to PEN International. And I was one of the founders. We were like 7 writers and my request was to integrate this center all languages that the writers use in Lebanon. Actually, also we had in the center an Armenian writer, but she couldn't afford us with a story. I wanted also an Armenian writer to be with us, but we couldn't have her. And it was important because there was some kind of a wall between these languages in Beirut. Like, I don't read for a francophone. The francophone doesn't read for my book. I don't read it in English. There was some kind of an invisible wall. And what we did an amazing initiative to bring all these writers together in the book, and at the same time to found a center, a PEN center. They happened together. They happened both. The book, I contacted them 2011, 2012, and we founded the PEN Center 2012 also. So also there is something else that encouraged me to make sure that all languages will be in the book, is that there is a totally different approach to the story itself when it is written by a francophone or an arabophone. There is much more liberty in naming things and in crossing the taboo barriers in French and in English much more than in Arabic. We mustn't forget that Arabic is the language of a very imposing, important book. So the modern writers, the young writers, are trying to break this barrier, to break this taboo. While in French and in English, they already broke it a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so interesting to see how they express the same geography, the same area, but in a different way. Not only different language, it's a different way.
Mm-hmm. Can I just have a follow-up? Once I've read the stories, and I noted that there was some kind of mixture that's very natural to Beirute. One thought came to me, and I got asked this last week when I was talking to one of my friends who read the book, and he was asking me, so I wanted to ask you, do the French and English languages still feel like some kind of reminder of the colonization, of some kind of presence from exterior forces, or are they becoming a part of being actually from Beirut, and a kind of appropriation, like a Beirut person who appropriates these languages and makes them their own?
Yeah, actually, these two languages are becoming a part of the city's identity. They are not revealed as a representation of a colonial time, not anymore. Because when you look at these languages as reflection of colonial time, this means that we look at them with an ideological background. But this ideology is no more there. The world has changed, and the city has changed, and the country has changed. And the tools of expression are much more interiorized or personalized much more than before. So if you express yourself in English or in French or in Arabic, the most important thing now is really to be able to express yourself, much more than in which language you want to express yourself. To be allowed to express yourself. So it's not anymore the same, it's not seen as before, except with those ideologized heads. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about the identity of the city, Iman, I have a question to Johnny. Johnny, they asked here, Salem Nasser asked here in the chat, what is the significance of indicating before each story the neighborhood or street name?
The reason why we did that, I mentioned it earlier, is that for a lot of cities, there's maybe 2 or 3 or 4 neighborhoods or areas where artists and writers tend to live. And so when we do these books, we don't want all the stories to be set in the popular neighborhoods or the neighborhoods where artists live or the trendy neighborhoods. We really want to look at a full city. And we're just as interested in the side of a city that people don't know about. In fact, we're maybe more interested in an area of a city that no one talks about. So when we hire an editor to put together the book, we say each story needs to be set in a different part of the city. I grew up in Washington, D.C. I was born and raised there. And when you see Washington, D.C. portrayed in movies and TV shows and in books, it's usually Capitol Hill, the politicians. But I grew up there, and it's a big city. And our lives didn't revolve around the politicians. Our lives had nothing to do with the politicians. It was a city of everyday, regular people. In the case of Washington, D.C., it was a very African-American city, majority African-American city. So to really properly portray Washington, D.C., you can't just have like one African-American writer or 2 African-American writers. To portray the city well, you really need a majority of African-American writers to really capture the essence of the city. And so that was my perspective, being a Washingtonian. And so when we did this series, we really wanted to look at full cities. And so that's the idea behind it, is we didn't want to fall in the trap of reinforcing the stereotypes of what people think about when they think of that particular city.
Thank you. Iman, there is another question for you. In the introduction of the book, you mentioned the sense of humor in obscure views, presenting some stories. Could you elaborate more on that? Is it used to create sort of a tragicomic effect?
Well, I think I mentioned this about the story of Bana Baydun, actually. It's really absurd. It's an absurd story, because in the story she says that she was in a pub in the night, and then a young man said hello to her, and then he started following her in the dark streets of Beirut. You know that Beirut almost it doesn't have electricity. They are living without electricity. So she went to the corniche where she walks every night, and the same young man followed her. And at a certain moment, when she feels that she's trapped and she's afraid, and the reader also gets this sense of fear, he tells her, "You didn't know me? I'm your pizza delivery boy." So, I mean, you feel scared, and then at the end, you say, "Oh, thanks God, it's not someone who's going to hurt her." And of course, it's absurd and it's funny, because, I mean, it's enough to imagine this scene to feel the absurdity of what goes on in this city in the night. And there is also the story of, it's not that funny, of Rawi Hajj, but also it reflects how the Lebanese also deal with their language, with the names of the things that relate them to the place, relate them to the city, relate them to the country, the notion of the nation and the country, and there is a lot of things that makes you reflect upon. And the story also of Bashir Hilal, it's also funny. I mean, it's absurd, because you see these stories, they put all the between brackets the mainstream values, they put them naked, and they reflect them as big lies.
Iman, just for curiosity, what's your neighborhood in Beirut?
Well, I moved to many places in Beirut. Right now, I left Beirut and I went to my home village. But the many years I lived in Beirut, it was in Ashrafiyeh. It's a little hill that gives to the city center, the centre-ville.
Okay, thank you. And so we are heading to the end of our conversation. I would like to ask you one last question. What's your favorite story in the book? You have a favorite story in the book, and why? For you,
I think I'm very well. I love two stories. Can I say two stories? I love the story of Bana Baydun, and for very personal, emotional reasons, I love the story of Bashir Hilal, because it took me like 1 year to convince him to write it. And it's like, it's his story, but I feel at the same time it's my baby. So these are my two favorite stories.
Pedro?
Well, I've said this before in other conversations. To me, the most striking one was Under the Tree of Melancholy by Najwa Barakat. It was kind of mixture of feelings. It was a story that took me to one extreme in tenderness and kindness and hope, and then crushed it all and made me cry by feeling anger, like a profound anger. So to me, it was the absolutely most shocking one, and the one I developed the greater appreciation for.
Mhm.
Johnny?
It's always hard for me to pick favorite stories, but I think maybe I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name right, but Tabek Abi Samra's story, which in our edition is the very first story in the collection, I found to be very, very powerful, beautifully written, and again, the translation, Michelle Hartman's translation, did it real justice. But I think every story in the book, and that's what we're trying to do with this series. And the only way we can make a series with 100 books is if we choose the editors very carefully and really uphold a very high standard for the stories in the book. That's our goal, and that was the case with Beirute Noir. Every story in the book is very strong, and we're really proud to have our logo on the back of the book.
I was very happy also to work with you, Johnny. I'm happy to meet you, to see you today.
Yeah.
And I hope that you think of Damascus Noir also and Cairo Noir.
Yep.
Which are the volumes that are coming in the future? Are there other cities?
We have Jerusalem Noir. We're doing, unsurprisingly, there's going to be 2 separate volumes, West Jerusalem and East Jerusalem. And then we have a few American cities, Denver Noir and Denver, Colorado. We just did we're getting ready to publish. We had done Paris Noir a long time ago, but we're now doing a noir collection of the suburbs around Paris. And there's some strong Arabic presence in some of those stories as well.
Great. So if you want to make your final considerations before we finish, do you want to say something else?
I want to say something to Pedro. Pedro, I was really impressed by the way you described how the stories touched you, mainly when you said it's not the geography, it's what they said, what they wrote, and how they expressed it. And this really unites literature everywhere. I mean, it reaches you. This means that it's a very good story.
Yeah, it's great to hear this, because that was like one of my main feelings during the whole process, was this sensation, this feeling that we are all speaking about the same issues, but from different point of view. So I wrote last week a text, a review for Tabla's website, and one of the things that I felt the need to put there was that kind of identification with this internal feeling. And by reading mainly your introduction, Iman, I felt that if you were talking about Brazil, I would believe it, because it's a kind of same feeling there that you just said, that the politicians just abandoned you, and you have this feeling of corruption and systemic failure and all of this. I think that all of you who are aware of the situation we're going through Brazil right now, you know that we can identify with this feeling very much. Unfortunately, we are going through the same kind of experiences. So to me, it was very moving. It was a very known place, unfortunately, but it was.
Yeah.
Johnny?
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
My only closing note is to thank the three of you, especially Iman, but Pedro, thank you for working so hard. I know for translators, a lot of people don't realize that translating is an extremely hard work, and Pedro may know this book better than anyone else.
Yeah.
Because translators dig so deep into each word in a book. And thanks to Tabla, Felipe, thank you for conducting a great conversation. Iman,
Yeah.
been wonderful working with you over these past years. And to all the viewers, thanks for watching, and thank you for supporting important literature.
Thank you very much, Anne.
I thank you, Philip, also. Thank you all.
In the name of Tabla, thank you, Iman. Thank you, Johnny, Pedro. Thank you for this conversation. It was a pleasure and an honor to me. And I want to thank everybody who have watched this live stream as well. So goodbye, everyone, and stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.